Good morning everybody, welcome back to Cilinix Crypto, or welcome to the channel if you're new, or welcome to this new video here on Bitcoin. We're going to do a full update on Bitcoin for today, also a little bit for the weekend. Tomorrow we'll talk about next week and all the economic data then. But obviously today we have those talks between the US and China, so that's quite interesting. What that's going to mean for the price. I mean, obviously that has a major effect on Bitcoin as well. So we'll talk about that briefly, but just in general, also what we're seeing from the price right now. I mean, the price of Bitcoin right now is basically in the same area as it was yesterday when I did my middle of the day market updates, and that is, and the main level, the main area that I'm using for this is the area that we also had price action in January, right? So that was when we hit those all-time highs. And then the majority of the price action was between 106,000 as the main resistance level, and then the main support level. And by the way, there's a lot of alerts going off, which I might have to keep an eye on. But then to the downside right here at 102, 101,000. And yesterday, the main level that I used, and I'd say that's the best level to kind of, gauge as support, that's 101,500. So we're within the chop. But this morning, from the Asian session into the European session so far, we have seen some bullish momentum, and that's what I do want to start off with a bit of a warning, and that is that this bullish momentum we're seeing right now is inherently, so then we're talking about this move, right? This is inherently very different from all the price action we've seen so far. For example, and it's actually more similar to something like this, right? So these green candles. Because what we're seeing is that, well, obviously it's weekend, right? So the volume is dropping down. So that means that, first of all, these moves happen with very, very little volume if you compare it to the entirety of last week. And then outside of that, and with that, it's also, again, quite similar to what we had right here, the 9th of May, last Friday, aka yesterday. The leverage is also quite high. You can see, especially during the last 2 hours, a lot of leverage came in. So I would say, especially on the higher time frames, as long as we're holding 101,500, I think we are bullish. So I definitely still have a bullish bias, but and therefore, short term price action like this can also continue, right? I mean, the fact that this is a bit of a shady move doesn't mean it should dump right now, but I do think that if we see a continuation of this into the weekend, into 105,000, for example, where we have the POC, I do think we'll see some sort of an unraveling early next week, and maybe at the end of tomorrow already. So be aware of that. I mean, short term, I do still think it's most likely that that we will see a continuation up higher. Like I said, into 105,000 where we have that POC, into 106,000 where we have that value area high. However, if it happens with low volume over the course of the weekend, it's very likely we're at least going to pull back to the start of this rallying behavior at 103,000, and we could also shoot down lower. And then the general rule of thumb right now for Bitcoin is just as long as we hold 101,500, we're fine. If we lose that short term, I think short term we're going a little bit lower. And then you should and then you should start thinking about levels towards 99 and 98,000, especially 98,000 right here is a very strong support level. So be aware of that. Right now, I would argue that short term, it's still most likely we'll see some more bullish momentum, but in general, we are within a choppy range. So be aware of that. Trading Bitcoin right now does not seem like the best idea, and also be aware of volatility that headlines can cause today. About the China-US talks, right? So there, if we see a bit of an underwhelming result of those talks, we could also see a retracement. That could be the start of unraveling all that leverage. And if we get some very positive headlines, right? So if they actually talked about some trade deals already, or at least some trade deal criteria, then that would be positive, and then we could see an accelerated move into that level at 106 and 105. And if that's with high volume, that would also decrease the chances of potentially pulling back later, all right? But that's what I think you need to know for now. So if you do have any questions, let me know down in the comments. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.